Good morning, fabulous choreographers. This is Morris Partee with Squirrel Trench Audio. And this morning, I am addressing a question that I just received from dance studio owner, the lovely Ann Kramer. And she is asking me a question which I am sure so many of you also have, all you dance studio owners who are getting together all your various tracks for recital, putting it into one playlist for your sound tech person, and you maybe just now realizing that the volumes of these are all over the place. And so the question from Anne is basically, I've got all these different tracks, they're all at different volumes. What can I do? I use Audacity. Is there some, and of course, Anne is looking for, as we all are, looking for some quick and easy fix to get them all at the same level. Well, unfortunately, as far as I know, there's no way to automatically do this. Basically, you have to open up every song edit, mix. You have to open every audio file on its own, check the overall volume, and adjust as necessary. So how would I go about doing that? Because this is not a service that I offer. I've tried doing it before. It is a huge bit of time that it takes to do it correctly and do it well. So the way that I would approach Anne's dilemma, and the way that many of you who also have the same issue, here's how I'd approach it. You open up the song, and Anne uses Audacity, and that's fine. You open up that song, and basically what you want to do is apply a limiter to it. What a limiter does is it makes the loudest part of your waveform in the music not exceed an upper limit. And where you want to set that upper limit so as not to introduce nasty distortion artifacts as your sound person plays it over your sound system, you want to set that ceiling at minus 0.5 dB. That is half a decibel under the maximum. The maximum level is 0, so you want to be 1/2 of a decibel over 0, and I'm not going to explain why you want it to be half a decibel under, but that is where professional sound engineers set their final limiter in whatever processing chain they have. So anyway, so that's the baseline. That's what you start doing. Now what you have to do is raise, and in a small handful of cases actually lower. So if you have a very soft track, and usually this is most common in, say, Broadway musical theater soundtracks recorded pretty much before the year 2000 or so, those are often quite a bit lower than what we expect digital audio to be today. So you're listening to a soft song, you want to raise that volume. You can do it right in your limiter until usually, I don't know what the Audacity limiter is, but you should be able to do it right in your Audacity limiter to raise the gain, raise the volume until it sounds about the same as what your other louder tracks sound like. Now, how do you know how do you know that you're raising it to the right volume? Well, in a certain sense, it takes experience, and it takes knowing your system. And basically you want to compare it to other loud tracks. And so you also want to do it you also really want to do this with speakers. I advise against doing it in headphones. It's just generally harder to figure out where the volume is in headphones. Are somehow putting the music right onto our ears. Our brains adjust to it very quickly, versus if you're listening to it over speakers, it's just easier to gauge, is that how is the volume in comparison to my other tracks. So hopefully, I don't want to get into the weeds of it. I want to keep this short and simple, and we're already at 5 minutes of explanation. So anyway, this is basically the approach that I would take to getting all of your music at the same level. I'm also gonna take another minute to explain why it really is important that you deliver all your music at the same level to your sound tech, and not rely on the sound person to be raising and lowering volumes of the different songs on the fly. So the reason why you don't want to do that is because unless you're planning on sort of rehearsing this with your sound tech, but that's a pain. Who's got time for that? But if your sound tech is trying to adjust levels on the fly and can't rely on the fact that you've supplied him or her music that is pretty consistent in the volume throughout, is because anytime a song starts soft, if you expect your sound tech to raise that volume anytime he or she hears something that's too soft, the problem is the sound tech does not know what's coming later in the song. So if a song is starting off soft and sound tech goes to push up that volume, well, the sound builds naturally in volume and as a crescendo, then now the sound tech's got to pull it back, and that's not good. That it takes away the dynamics that the music naturally had. It takes away the impact on the song, or else you're blasting out the audience with music that's too loud. So your sound tech does not. You definitely do not want to rely on your sound tech trying to go up and down in volume depending on what the song is. You really want to try and get those volumes consistent in the audio files before you give it to the sound tech. You don't want your sound tech trying to go up and down in volume. And so I will give a small commercial message to myself. Everything in the Squirrel Trench Music Center is at commercially standard volumes. And so I've even worked with some of our third-party producers to make sure that what they are supplying is in the correct ballpark of what is commercially acceptable, good volume for music. And then one other point that I do want to leave you with this is based on this advice of, hey, if I put a limiter as the last thing on my music, or if I use a limiter to boost my music, well, why don't I just boost all of my music and make it really, really loud? Well, there's definitely a reason why you do not want to do that. And the reason why is that there is a trade-off, and it's a big trade-off. If you boost music past a certain point, really all you're doing is introducing distortion. And so you might ask yourself, well, why is some of that older music so soft? Well, it's because we used to turn the volume up in our device and not rely. We don't want to rely on the audio file to supply the volume. That's what the amplifier is for. That's what the volume knob is for on whatever it is you're doing. And the trade-off of trying to make your audio file too loud is distortion. And nobody wants distortion. There's nothing good about distortion. A little tiny bit of digital distortion is okay. We've sort of figured out how to deal with that. That's basically what the limiter is for. but we do not want to just crank the volumes into our audio files. It just makes them harsh. It actually makes them fatiguing to listen to for any sort of extended period of time. So we do not want the audio files to be too loud. And so what? Yeah, well, now we're at 10 minutes, so I'm not going to go further with this, but for now. But I'm happy to answer your questions about this, and because it really is an important topic. If your goal is to deliver as great an experience to your audience who is hearing your tracks, you want to deliver to them as great an experience as possible. So yeah, so there are some times when I'm putting a mix together for a client, and it's especially true in hip hop. Hip hop artists love to make but there's a lot of genres that club music, dance music, they love to crank the levels. And if it's too loud, I will turn it down in the mix. And in that case, all that the music creator's done is lost headroom, make it a little bit less dynamic. But okay, I know you don't want to hear about those technicalities. So anyway, let me know what your questions are about getting your volumes to an even level. And I look forward to answering those, and I hope this helps. Happy dancing.